Pirates. They are some of history's most feared outlaws, marauding bandits that heisted millions in treasure on the high seas. Legend has it that there's an island far from the Caribbean where these criminals once lived, just out of reach from the law.
The pirate history is everywhere on this island.
Captain Kidd, all of the big guys were here.
But is it fact or fiction? It's a question that's been burning for centuries.
They didn't advertise where they sailed. They didn't advertise where they operated from.
And now, this team of pirate wreck hunters is on a quest to set the record straight.
There it is right there. Right here.
Just what secrets lurk deep beneath these waters?
Diver to surface.
And what will these clues tell about the lives of the infamous captains and their thieving crews?
This is amazing.
The truth is waiting to be revealed.
Something here. Definitely something here.
Here, on the ultimate pirate island.
This expedition is a huge opportunity. The more I read about it, the more primary source documents that we find, the more I realize how much is there and how much is unknown.
Renowned underwater explorer Barry Clifford and a team of divers and archaeologists are heading to the middle of the Indian Ocean, thousands of miles from Clifford's home base on Cape Cod. They are on a mission to find some of the rarest archaeological sites on Earth, pirate shipwrecks. Their pursuit leads them to a remote island off Madagascar called Isle Sainte Marie. 3 centuries ago, it was teeming with pirate ships and the marauders who sailed them.
There's no question, based on solid primary source evidence, that the ships that came back to this harbor were the richest pirate ships that were ever taken.
Having pieced together leads from court records, ship logs, and French naval maps, Barry believes that this remote island may harbor a virtual graveyard of pirate shipwrecks. One map, discovered in the French archives, dates back to 1734. It contains markings which indicate the locations of various shipwrecks in the harbor.
I mean, all the important pirates, all of the big guys were here.
Captains like Dirk Shivers, whose crew took more than $50 million in cash from a ship carrying pilgrims returning from Mecca. Or Oliver Labuse, known as the Buzzard, who sailed away with $400 million in diamonds. Or William Condon, who scored $375 million in booty in a single haul. Each one brought the captured ships back to Isle Sainte Marie. But finding hard evidence of these pirate exploits has eluded researchers for centuries.
We only know about them through testimony at court trials or by depositions from their victims. They didn't advertise where they sailed. They didn't advertise where they operated from. So there's very little in the way of actual physical evidence for pirates that can be solidly identified and studied.
Of all the thousands of shipwrecks that have been found over the decades, only a handful are suspected to be pirate ships, and only one has been proven definitively to be a pirate vessel, and this one was found in 1984 by Barry Clifford. In the waters off Cape Cod, Barry brought up the bell of the Witta, the galleon of the pirate Black Sam Bellamy, which sank in a storm in 1717. Barry spent nearly 2 decades excavating the wreck and recovering artifacts that were then placed in a museum. In 2000, Barry and his team first came to Sainte Marie to follow up on the clues he'd found researching the Witta. There they found what they suspected were the remains of several shipwrecks. But before Clifford could confirm that the wrecks were pirate ships, a political crisis within the government of Madagascar forced his team to stop their research. After 10 years of intense negotiations with the Malagasy government, Barry is back to test his theory with the help of his hand-picked team.
Each person has a skill, sort of like the Dirty Dozen. These guys have been with me for 25 years, some of them, including my son Brandon, who basically grew up on various salvage ships. We've got people who dove with Jacques Cousteau, we've got former head of the FBI dive team, and you can really rely on them. I've been all over the world with these guys.
Historian and diver Chris McCourt is bringing 1,800 pounds of equipment from Madagascar to Isle Ste. Marie. Chris has worked with Barry for nearly 20 years.
We have such a large amount of equipment, probably close to a ton. Obviously, we can't travel light to a place like this. We have to kind of think ahead as much as possible and bring really everything. We've got a generator, we've got air compressor for our scuba tanks, we've got a water pump. You know, you got to come prepared. Hope nothing rolls out on the bumpy road back. So maybe I'll ride in the back. This is sort of the last leg of the trip till bring it all down to the site where we'll be working, which is actually right here over my left shoulder. It's the harbor. It's a natural harbor at Isle Ste. Marie, and this is where the majority of the pirates would bring in their stolen ships, burn them, strip them. All happened right here 300 years ago.
Of all the ships that may rest beneath the waters of Isle Ste. Marie, one may be one of the richest pirate ships of all time. The Fiery Dragon, a 400-ton, 40-gun warship. She had a brief but bountiful career, captained by English pirate Billy One Hand Condon, one of history's most colorful and successful pirates. Like all pirate ships, the Fiery Dragon was originally a commercial vessel, a heavily armed Dutch merchant ship known as the Compagnies Wolvaren. In the winter of 1718, she is traveling off the southwest coast of Africa, escorting a flotilla of smaller merchant ships. When Billy One Hand and his crew attack and take her, the pirates then take the captured vessel. They overhaul her, turning her into a formidable warship with 40 cannons, 20 brass swivel guns, and even 3 portable cohorn mortars that could lob exploding shells onto the decks of enemy ships. Now manned with a well-armed crew of 320 pirates, Condon renames the ship the Fiery Dragon and sets out on the high seas in search of a big haul. For 2 years, he roams 3 oceans, striking at will, while eluding the British and French navies. But it is in the waters of the Indian Ocean in August of 1720 that he makes the biggest catch of his career, an Indian pilgrim ship bound for Jeddah. Their score: gold coins, drugs, spices, and silk that today would be worth an estimated $375 million. It is the greatest heist for the captain and crew of the Fiery Dragon. And their last. Condon tells his men he is ready to retire.
Pirates who left piracy usually did so because they'd made their fortune. Piracy was a fairly young man's game. Quite a lot of English pirates went over to the French, and it became well known that you could retire if you brought gold with you and promised not to be a criminal.
The French government offers Condon a safe haven to retire to, out of reach of British law. But there is one condition. Condon and his crew would have to destroy their ship. The pirates vote to take the deal, and are said to have sunk the Fiery Dragon in the winter of 1721. It hasn't been seen since. Now fully equipped, Clifford's team has set up base camp at the entrance of the harbor. They're in the final stages of preparation to begin diving in their search for the fiery dragon.
2 o'clock, you guys are going to be good to go.
Right. We'll have those tanks and we'll relocate those.
Yeah, we're just starting the process.
Right.
Barry has chosen this site because back in 2000, the team discovered a find that would be missed by the untrained eye. A pile of large, uniformly shaped stones, used as ballast in the holds of ships to balance the cargo and keep the vessels upright and stable. These piles would be left like markers long after the wood of the ships decayed around them. If Barry's team can find the telltale ballast pile, Clifford believes he'll find the fiery dragon. But finding the ballast pile again could be a problem. In 2008, Cyclone Ivan hit Isle Sainte Marie with winds over 125 miles per hour, killing 9 people and destroying 75% of the buildings on the island. Chris and archaeologist Marco Rolling examined the underwater photo reconnaissance of the harbor floor that Barry made a decade before. They're concerned that Ivan may have disturbed the silt-covered bottom. They fear the ballast pile may be buried, or worse, destroyed altogether. Barry's son Brandon will be the first in the water. Having grown up diving the murky waters off Cape Cod, where his father found the pirate ship the Widow, Brandon is ready for the less than ideal conditions here.
Visibility is a huge factor, but I think we're pretty used to working in low visibility conditions on the Widow and in other places. It's not, you know, storybook stuff where you're in this clean, pristine water with a beautiful, perfect shipwreck, you know. If that was the case, other people would have found them, and you know, if it's a difficult job, the wrecks are more hard to find, and you know, that's what we're good at.
You got plenty of water behind you, and when you get in, just come back up, get orientated, and give me the okay and go, okay? In the water.
Visibility extends only a few feet. Just a slight breeze on the surface of the water is enough to churn up thick clouds of silt, making diving difficult and dangerous.
Visibility is poor. Stand by.
For Barry Clifford and his team, everything is riding on this first dive. If Brandon can't locate the ballast pile, then the 10 years they have spent working and planning for this expedition will have been in vain. But if he does find it, then the guys will be a huge step closer to exposing one of the most notorious pirate ships in all of history.
No viz. Can't see a thing. Stand by on surface. There's no viz at the moment, but it's coming and going.
Roger that, we copy. Over.
Diver Brandon Clifford is in the silt-clouded waters off Madagascar's Isle Sainte Marie. He's hunting for what may be the wreck of the infamous pirate ship, the Fiery Dragon. 10 years ago, Brandon's father, noted underwater explorer Barry, located a pile of ballast stones here. A pile that could be the archaeological marker of a shipwreck. If Brandon doesn't locate the pile, the team will lose their chance to excavate what may be one of the richest pirate ships in history.
It seems to be clearing up a bit as the tide pushes in. Services to everyone. Intact. Practically flawless. Beautiful.
Stretching before him some 20 meters is the ballast pile.
Excellent, I copy that.
As the silt settles, Brandon sees something unexpected among the ballast stones. Dozens of shards of fine porcelain, clues to the ship's cargo, and possibly its identity.
I was surprised at how pristine it still is.
Looks exactly as we left it.
Barry is eager to confirm this is the ballast pile he first glimpsed 10 long years ago. He goes in alone so as to disturb the silt bottom as little as possible. Even by himself, the slightest movement causes the silt to billow up in blinding clouds. Barry has brought a metal detector to help him find objects buried in the silt and mud.
Diver to surface, diver to surface. This is amazing. There's just stuff everywhere.
The detector has been sounding almost continuously since Barry arrived at the site. Confirmation there is something buried here, deep below the sea floor. And it just may be the fiery dragon. Having seen the condition of the pile for himself, Barry can now send out the team to begin surveying the site.
We don't know if this target's associated with that target. They may be the same. We'll identify the targets, eliminate them one at a time. That's what your team's doing. Then we're going to be setting up grids, getting ready to dig a test pit.
The dive team fans out over the wreck site to take pictures, make measurements, and set up marker buoys that will mark off the search area. Barry's team will be looking for identifying clues, construction features that show the ship was Dutch-built, traces of cargo that originated in ports she is known to have visited, weapons said to have been on board, and artifacts that can be dated prior to her sinking.
What we hope to do now is to identify the fiery dragon, and by identify I mean we have to be able to take artifacts, material that's datable, that will give our archaeologists evidence to be able to identify that ship, and hopefully to be able to come up with fiery dragon license plate.
This isn't pleasure diving in the Caribbean. This is a particular type of diving. This is shipwreck diving, where we're working with very, very fragile, very, very important, priceless artifacts. So there's a way that we have to go about doing things. We can't just go over the whole wreck picking artifacts and digging holes. That's not what archaeology is. That's not how we work. So we started off with a grid.
The grid is a 6-foot square made of lightweight plastic tubing. Red plastic line is used to divide the grid into 4 sections. The grid can be moved from one section of the wreck to another as needed.
We put it down on the ballast pile, and then we work in that grid so that anything that comes out of a certain section is recorded coming out of that section, so that we know where these artifacts came from, what part of the ship. I mean, down to the inch.
With the grid in place at its first location, Barry sends the dive team down to begin hunting and recovering artifacts. Some of the divers will concentrate on the porcelain shards scattered along the surface of the pile. Brandon will start digging along the exterior of the ballast pile.
How are you making out down there?
Yeah, I'm working on a couple targets here. Got a couple, what looks like the edge of the rim of a cup, and maybe 2 stacked together. I'm going to take my time on these 2. It looks like they could be a couple full cups, so I'm going to go slowly.
Yeah, Roger, that sounds great. Take your time.
Even in the murky light, the paint on these delicate cups is as bright as if it was painted days, not centuries before. Barry's son Brandon has just brought up the expedition's first big find, a set of china cups.
Wow, great.
A clue they hope will prove this was the fiery dragon.
Let's get some tags on these. See, we're looking at museum pieces here. That's what's so incredible about this.
When we have porcelain, we'll be able to date it. At least get a ballpark figure and say, okay, this is before 1700 or it's after.
John DeBry, head of Florida's Center for Historical Archaeology and an expert in 17th and 18th century artifacts, is the team's lead archaeologist. He will identify and date whatever the team recovers.
It's pretty interesting. It's very well done. Got from southern China. And by the foot of the cup, once again, this dictates that it is Kangxi and late Kangxi period, so probably anywhere between 1718 and 1720.
Given that the porcelain was made prior to the sinking of the Fiery Dragon in 1721, the team now believes it has tangible evidence that it is on the right wreck in their hunt for the famed pirate ship.
And this is where it all happened in the 16th and 17th and 18th century, right here. The pirates used to bring in all of their stolen merchandise, and there's no place in the world like this.
So of all the pirates that have ever been in history, in the Indian Ocean, in the China Seas, in the Mediterranean, in the Atlantic, in the Pacific, these were the only ones who ever actually captured great treasure ships. Caribbean piracy was really small scale. None of them ever captured anything anywhere near as valuable.
These raiders had learned that the sea routes to the Orient and the Far East offered an ideal hunting ground, and the island of Sainte Marie, a perfect base of operations. Predictable winds, especially during monsoon season, and the traditions that brought pilgrims to Mecca along these sea routes made it easy for the pirates to guess when the richest ships would be on the water. During these weeks, the pirate ships would wait in the waters off Sainte Marie, an island controlled by no government, and the only port in the region where they were welcomed and supplied unconditionally. Sooner or later, a vulnerable ship sails into the pirates' ambush, and the captured vessel is diverted back to Isle Sainte Marie. If the ship was in solid shape, pirates would overhaul it, customizing it for their criminal exploits, just as they did with the Fiery Dragon.
Pirates would modify captured vessels to make them faster. For example, they might cut down part of the structure of the vessel to make it lighter. They would modify armaments. They would add cannon to the ship to make it more of a fighting vessel. They would clear out the internal walls or bulkheads of the ship to make it easier to move around from cannon to cannon.
If the ship was damaged or unseaworthy, pirates would strip it of its valuables and usable parts, like 18th century chop shop criminals, and then sink it to the bottom of the ocean, usually right there in the harbor.
Pirates could scuttle a ship in any number of ways. Probably the simplest I've ever heard of is a group of pirates who simply fired a cannon inside the hold of their vessel to punch a hole out the bottom. Another way of destroying their vessel was to simply burn it at anchor.
Encouraged by the discovery of a motherlode of artifacts, historian Chris McCourt is working a section of the grid containing a large pile of broken porcelain.
Got a few nice pieces, porcelain here, 2.5 meters east of the grid. Stand by, we're going to bring that up.
We're just working an area on the back of the ship there. There's a lot of pottery, and it's the conchi stuff, but I also found some green and blue.
To the untrained eye, these pieces of broken pottery may all look the same. But to an archaeologist, there's a big clue to be found in this mess of tiny pieces. A clue that may lead them closer to positively identifying the Fiery Dragon.
Oh, wow.
There's white and blue porcelain all over the wreck. This wreck is a real-time capsule. It's amazing.
A team of underwater archaeologists, led by famed underwater explorer Barry Clifford, has just made a major find in the waters off Madagascar's Isle Sainte Marie. It's yet another clue in the team's quest to ID one of the richest pirate ships in history, and to confirm the existence of the ultimate pirate island.
We found several fragments of blue on white porcelain, Chinese export porcelain, that had as a motif a double-headed eagle, a phoenix. This is really, really amazing because there are only 3 pieces of Chinese porcelain are known to have this double eagle motif. The phoenix does not exist in Chinese mythology. So how did they get the idea?
Beginning in the 17th century, Chinese artisans began making porcelainware for export to European markets, using designs that traders commissioned to sell in their countries.
We know through archival documents that in 1720, off Mozambique, the Fire Dragon captured another ship by the name of the House of Austria. That ship was on its way from Canton to Ostend.
The double-headed eagle, the insignia of the Austrian Empire. This tiny shard of pottery ties the wreck the team is working on to a cargo the Fiery Dragon is known to have captured. The team is now sure they are on the right track and more eager to get a look at the ship's construction. If it is of Dutch design, and if they find nothing on board outside of the time frame, that will be the proof they need.
We're going to dive you guys one at a time, so whoever wants to go first, burn half a tank each.
We can work 2 sections of the wreck at the same time, 2 pits.
The team hits the water, looking for objects and structural details that can be dated and identified that will lend support to the theory that this wreck is the pirate ship, the Fiery Dragon. Archaeologists John DeBry and Marco Rolling want to expose more of the ship's remaining timbers. The method of construction may tell them where the ship was made. If the ship is Dutch-built, like the Fiery Dragon, its construction will be different from an English or French ship of the same period. The Fiery Dragon would have been larger than most ships on the water, a flagship with distinctive construction characteristics, especially in the futtocks, the curved timbers that form the hull of the ship. Dutch-built ships of the time used 2 futtocks side by side to make them stronger. But English-built ships used 1 single futtocks that attached to the keel. It's critical that the team get a clear look at this timber construction, but it's impossible to clear all the silt and sand by hand. To get to the futtocks, the divers will use an underwater dredging machine called a venturi. The venturi is literally an underwater vacuum cleaner. It removes large amounts of mud and silt and expels it through an exhaust port away from the dig site. The venturi is named for the 18th century physicist Giovanni Battista Venturi, who first recorded the principle that constricting the flow of air or fluid would increase its velocity. The way a thumb over the end of a garden hose can be used to shoot water several yards. It's a design element used in jet engines and the Venturi pump, which can move 350 gallons of silt-filled water per minute. While the dive team clears the dig site, Marco is working inside the collapsed ribs of the ship.
Well, I've been down there all morning, and then all of a sudden, like 10, 15 minutes before the end of my dive, and all of a sudden I see a gold coin stuck to the edge of one of the beams. So I decided to measure it in so I know exactly the spot where I found it. So we can go back there and do some more work, and hopefully we find more. I'm usually very calm, and still at that particular moment I was calm but excited.
Marco has found a gold coin, minted in Austria in 1689. It predates the Fiery Dragon's sinking in 1721. It's the kind of artifact that could have been lost or secreted on board, and it fits the time period. Not far from Marco's earlier find, John brings in another gold coin.
What is it?
1650 Dutch coin.
It too predates the sinking of the Fiery Dragon.
Condent and his crew, pirate crew, had just committed one of the largest robberies in history. And when they scuttled the ship, they probably didn't really care about looking here and there. If somebody forgot something behind, they took the larger portion of the treasure and sunk the rest. So there's a possibility we may find more treasure, more cultural material of great interest to us.
After 48 hours on the sea floor, the dive team is making progress. More of the structural timbers have been exposed.
we set up and secured the grid. We have that beam, and then I've exposed cross ribs that are actually first buttocks. So we're starting to see the shipwreck itself.
But it remains to be seen if the timbers also fit what they know about the ship.
I'm turning on the Venturi now. Good for visibility once more. Seems like it's a regular thing here. Right up there, gauging the Venturi.
The team is finally able to get a clear look and finds that key pieces of the ship's structure have been preserved.
It looks pretty good. We have some double framing that may indicate that it is a Dutch ship.
According to the primary source documents Barry studied, the only Dutch ship sunk in the harbor at Isle Sainte Marie in the late 17th and early 18th centuries was the Fiery Dragon. It's another positive sign for Clifford and his crew, but still not the definitive proof that what they found is a pirate vessel. There's only another half hour to go before dusk. It does not look like they'll find it today.
Topside, I need the Venturi turned off, please. Just repeat, need the Venturi turned off.
Diver Mike Pizio, a former FBI underwater crime scene investigator, is scanning one of the test pits with his metal detector. The detector goes off. Mike zeroes in, and his fingers close on something no bigger than a postage stamp.
Topside, I have an object here I can't identify. Topside, I don't know what we've got. Because we've got something new in this area.
Former FBI diver Mike Pizio, part of the underwater exploration team led by famed pirate wreck hunter Barry Clifford, has just found something odd in the waters off Isle Sainte Marie in Madagascar. Pizio and the team are exploring a wreck they believe is the notorious pirate vessel, the Fiery Dragon.
I'm gonna bring it up.
Got an X on it. It's metal. Metal detector hit on it. Silver, I think. It's black.
You know what that is?
It oxidizes black.
That's the same kind of gaming token that we found on the Witta.
This small piece of lead is a gaming token, very similar to one Barry found on the pirate ship he discovered off the coast of Cape Cod in 1984. Unlike the crews of merchant ships, most pirates were forbidden to gamble for money while on board, for fear that the proximity of gold and treasure might prove too great a temptation for losing gamblers who wanted to stay in the game. The tokens could be used to represent monies the pirates would be paid once they were on land, and were based on their own system of symbols.
I saw it just flicker a little bit. I saw the X on it.
Excellent. Very, very good. This is one of our best finds today. It just fits perfectly with other artifacts from the Witta, which are the only other identifiable gambling tokens ever found on a pirate ship that I'm aware of. Very cool.
Fairly nice pieces.
The expedition is building momentum. Divers are digging deeper into the wreck site and uncovering large quantities of artifacts. Given that these pieces are hundreds of years old, each needs to be quickly and carefully handled at base camp. It's critical that the artifacts be gradually acclimated and not be allowed to dry out too quickly. Otherwise, pottery might crack. Metals could corrode. Every artifact from the wreck site is carefully sorted, cataloged, and photographed. Bits of metal, shards of pottery and glass, organic material to be identified. To the expert archaeologist and the crew, the picture is becoming clear. Dozens of artifacts have been brought up, and the design of the pottery, the dates on the coins, all are the right period. The design of the ship is Dutch, and the gaming pieces, something specific to pirates. With the circumstantial evidence piling up, the team is now confident of the ID.
You know, people get convicted of crimes thanks to circumstantial evidence. So again, we don't need a bell for us to say we believe that we have the Fire Dragon. And everything that we've found so far on this particular ship indicate a ship that sunk
around 1715 to 1722.
It's a great complex puzzle. It's safe to conclude that we definitely have the fiery dragon.
While Clifford's conclusion that his team has found the fiery dragon is groundbreaking, Clifford believes it is just a scratch on the surface of the hidden pirate culture to be unearthed here at Isle Ste. Marie. In fact, 10 years ago, when Barry was last here, he found what he believes were a number of signs, both in the bay and on land, that this is the ultimate pirate island. Now that he's convinced that he's proven his first big hunch, he's ready to move on to the next. Halfway through their allotted time, on the 15th day of the expedition, the team splits up to explore two new targets, one underwater, the other on land. Divers Jeff Spiegel and Mike Pizio and archaeologist John DeBry head out to the mouth of the harbor where the channel is deepest. They will begin sonar scans of the sea floor. Their target, two large pirate ships that archival documents claim were deliberately sunk in this part of the harbor in 1699 as part of a pirate battle strategy. Barry is convinced there will be large ballast piles at the bottom of the channel.
Okay, now this rock pile he's been talking about should be up here.
The team will methodically cover the harbor in an overlapping grid pattern. The divers refer to it as mowing the lawn.
Yeah, we just did the seawall, and now we're just mowing the lawn.
They will be recording GPS coordinates on any objects the sonar picks up.
Well, I got something on here that I like.
Yeah, I like that too. There could be some wreckage right along here.
It marked. We've now recorded that waypoint. It's giving us the exact GPS positions. And we've got saved in the memory this photograph. We can pull back up again. All right, we're going again.
While Jeff, Mike, and John conduct the scan, Barry will head up the exploration of a small islet in the center of the harbor. Locals call this mysterious place Isle du Forbon, or Forbidden Island, because legend has it pirates would warn that anyone attempting to land there would be killed. Legend also has it that a trader named Adam Baldridge buried a great treasure here. 10 years ago, when Barry first explored the island, he found several pits or shafts dug into the earth, which he believes may lead down to tunnels. Tunnels that could have been dug by pirates 300 years ago. Now, with a team of geologists and updated equipment, he'll see what really lies below the surface.
One of the things that we're going to do as on part of this expedition is investigate the island. We're going to use land-penetrating radar and see what Adam Baldridge may have left behind.
Pirate shipwreck expert Barry Clifford and a team of geologists are halfway around the world, off the coast of Madagascar, in the harbor of Isle Ste. Marie. They are paddling to a small islet in the center of the harbor, known to the locals as Forbidden Island, where the so-called king of Pirate Island, Adam Baldridge, is said to have established an outpost and made a fortune trading with the local pirates.
Adam Baldridge was working with a trader in New York named Phillips, and he was supplying Ste. Marie with goods from his ships out of New York City.
In 1690, Baldridge paid the Malagasy natives to build a fort here and stocked it with European goods, goods to be sold to the pirates. Baldridge uses his New York connections to fence their stolen goods, including slaves. A surviving letter between Baldridge and his trading partner, Frederick Phillips, includes an inventory of one such exchange. Phillips's boat arrives at Isle Ste. Marie with salt, gunpowder, weapons, liquor, hats, shoes, combs, clothing, and tobacco. For the return voyage, she is loaded with 34 slaves, 24 head of cattle, and 1,100 pieces of eight.
This guy was making a fortune selling things like rum and probably sugar and all kinds of clothing, sails, materials, anything that the pirates might need. He would charge over 100%, because it's the same thing today here. You just can't get stuff out here very easily.
One of the first things that Baldridge trades for are 22 big guns, cannons the pirates had seized from other ships to make his fortress impenetrable. An armed camp where even pirates would be safe. In this well-protected paradise, the pirates are able to relax and enjoy the tropical delights. But it does not last long.
Baldridge did very well until 1697.
Baldridge's hold on the island ends abruptly after he lures some of the Malagasy natives onto a passing merchant ship and sells them as slaves to the French colonists on nearby Reunion Island.
They didn't like it when he started taking their own cousins and kinsmen. So they rioted and burned down his fort and would have killed him, except he happened to be away at the time on the mainland of Madagascar.
Hearing what was going on, Baldridge beat a hasty retreat back to North America, losing his kingdom, but saving his life. Now, more than 300 years later, team geologists Dan Blaze and Ken Anderson are searching for the tunnel that Adam Baldridge was said to have dug sometime in the late 1690s. They will begin their search at the highest point of the island.
We use an imaging technique called ground penetrating radar. It sends electromagnetic radar pulses into the ground. And if you have a tunnel, as you move the equipment across from hard soil into an air pocket, you actually see a reflection of that less dense soil in the middle of the tunnel. And then you pass to the other side and it gets more dense. And that's how you find the boundary levels of the tunnel.
The GPR equipment is also used for the identification of subsurface utilities. That's one of the most common uses of it. A sewer pipe, in effect, or a large concrete pipe is very similar to a tunnel.
That was interesting.
Right through there? That's where I had
there was a hit just at one part at 12 feet.
Dan and Ken have found 2 deep holes that have been dug in the island some time ago. They are partially collapsed and filled in, but preliminary scans indicate they may extend some 20 feet below the surface. The team wonders if they might lead to a connecting tunnel.
We believe that this main shaft is connected to a shaft 150 feet down the hill, and we're checking to see whether the tunnel connects these shafts. We're going to march down the hill, crisscrossing the potential tunnel, and try to identify its boundaries.
With ground-penetrating radar, the team can detect voids or tunnels 30 feet below the surface. But the device needs to be in contact with the ground, and the heavy vegetation is interfering with the imaging.
I'm sharpening the machete so I can cut the trail. We have to get bare earth and a good 18 by 18 inch trail to run our ground penetrating radar.
The theory that Baldridge created a system of tunnels as part of his fortress may be supported by the connection between the pirates and their pre-criminal careers. According to historical sources, many pirates were former miners, others former soldiers. 2 professions where a knowledge of precision digs was a must. For soldiers, hand-dug tunnels were a basic element of the 17th century siege tactics, while miners of the time could drive shafts of 200 feet or more using nothing but manpower and explosives, 2 commodities the pirates have in excess.
Let's make one more pass. Let's go back the other way.
Alrighty.
It will take Ken and Dan 4 days to sweep a 160,000 square foot area. But if they find what they're looking for, it will confirm the stories that have circulated for centuries about the existence of Adam Baldridge's fortress. And more importantly to Barry, proof that this may be the ultimate pirate island. Dan is looking for a particular shape to show up on his radar screen, a hyperbola, or bell shape that indicates there is an air pocket underground. Depending on how strong the signal is, he may only get a series of ovals, but that would be enough evidence to warrant further investigation.
It looks like a strong signal at about 10 feet. That actually looks very promising. It's not the nice hyperbola that I expected to find, but I definitely see the image of a void. Keep going, Ken. I'll tell you when I get to the other side of what that...
After several more passes, Dan gets a reading 10 feet below them.
Here is where I had a signal that might have been about 6 to 7 feet wide there. Let's go back over this one more time. I'd like to validate both runs.
The team zeroes in on an area where ground-penetrating radar shows signs of what may be underground construction.
We'll need to confirm on another pass.
What do you got?
It's interesting. When you take a diagonal line right through here, we see nothing on the amplitude of the resolution of the machine until you get to about where it is right there. If we dissect and transect perpendicular to the line between these two shafts, we should be able to identify conclusively whether or not we believe there is a tunnel that connects these two shafts.
Are you seeing hints of that now?
I am. In 4 of the last 6 scans that we have done, we've actually seen an anomalous reading right in a linear line here.
The geologists will use another detector, the electromagnetic profiler, to verify what the ground-penetrating radar seems to be picking up. The profiler can also detect any metallic objects below the ground.
600, 603, 1400, 1700, 2500, that's a big signal.
The geological team will finish their scans and take the data back to base camp for further analysis. Using special computer software, they will be able to analyze all their readings and verify what, if anything, exists underground. While Dan and Ken search underground for signs of Adam Baldridge's pirate fortress, Barry Clifford scans the surface. For Clifford, this hunt for pirate activity has been a lifelong pursuit.
Growing up on Cape Cod, I would walk the beaches in a place called Wings Island, and there was all sorts of rumors about buried pirate treasure, and I would go like this by myself and look for things. I made my mind up many years ago that if you're doing it for money, you're doing it for the wrong reason. There's something here. There's definitely something here. There's a marking on this rock. Check this out. There's an X on it, and there's right angles. I'm not kidding.
Barry Clifford and a team of geologists are looking for evidence of pirates on a small islet in the harbor of Isle Sainte-Marie, just off the coast of Madagascar. Barry has just found something odd in this place that the locals call Forbidden Island.
Water on it. I did see what looked like an X.
Look here.
Yeah, it almost looks like it is a square with an X right through it. Yeah.
There's too many, it's not coincidence.
No, that does not look coincidental. That looks very clear.
Mother Nature doesn't draw like that.
Symbols and codes were an important part of pirate life and played a key role in the life and death of one of the most famous pirates known to frequent Isle Sainte-Marie.
One of the more intriguing pirates of the 18th century was Oliver Levasseur, aka La Bouze, meaning the vulture. So far as we know, he started in the trade around 1715. La Bouze, after operating on the coasts of West Africa and Brazil, went out to the Indian Ocean and made the second richest capture in recorded pirate history.
The legend begins in 1721, in one of the boldest pirate exploits ever. La Bouze and his men build a new ship and capture the Portuguese galleon Our Lady of the Cape. She's carrying a fortune in gold and silver bars, jewels, and costly religious objects. including a gold cross inlaid with diamonds and rubies, so heavy it took 3 men to carry it. It's a haul that today would be worth $400 million. The pirates are so dazzled by the hoard that they decide not to rob the passengers on board, something nearly unheard of, and they reward Labou's leadership by voting him a larger share of the treasure, a prize alone worth tens of millions, some of which Labou's eventually spent to buy himself a pardon.
Labou's continued on as a pirate for a time. He reportedly took the king's pardon, thought he was safe.
But that changes in July of 1730, when an emissary from a merchant ship rows onto the island to ask Labou's for help traversing the island harbor.
He was lured on board a French merchant ship who promptly took him prisoner, and after a very short trial, he was sentenced to death. There's some basis for the idea that Labou's did indeed bury treasure, because when he was captured, there's no record that he had so much as a red cent with him. According to legend, as he was standing on the gallows, he flung a piece of parchment to the crowd with the shout, "Find my treasure, he who can." The parchment that Labou's threw to the crowd was directions to his treasure, but these were encrypted by a Masonic coding system that had originally been developed by the Freemasons and had been modified by Labou's. Essentially, it looks like a complicated version of a tic-tac-toe board.
The strange story, and some accounts that claim to reproduce the code Labou's tossed to the crowd, have fascinated scholars and treasure hunters ever since. And many have tried to decipher the pirate codex.
Some scholars believe that Labou's code was something that he developed as a personal entertainment or personal diversion during his years on the island of Madagascar, and as a means of frustrating would-be searchers for his treasure.
Whether or not Labou's was playing a joke on future treasure hunters, Forbidden Island is full of mysteries. Barry has discovered another set of strange markings on the rock. 2 parallel lines with 2 diamond shapes in between them.
There's no other large rock like this, is there?
Now, you would think this definitely they would use this to mark on.
Pirates in general employed symbols in order to communicate messages. It's important to remember that they were multinational in composition. You had not only British, but also French, Dutch, Swedes. Aside from being multinational, many of the crew members, not all, but many of them were only marginally literate.
Ken has analyzed some of the symbols Barry and his team found on Forbidden Island.
Now, on this inscribed stone, we clearly see 2 diamonds, as well as a square with an X in the center of it. I believe that the 2 diamonds are very important because in the 17th and 18th centuries, these were symbols that were used in map making to depict fortifications or blockhouses, things of that nature. And so I believe that this stone may be in effect a surveyor's stone. The 2 fortification marks represent the relationship of the 2 forts from a common point, and that the lines inscribed in the stone may give us clues as to where we might be able to find other archaeological features on the island.
Geologists Dan Blaze and Ken Anderson have been analyzing the data from both the ground-penetrating radar and the electromagnetic profiler. 2 of the radar frequencies in particular have picked up data on what lies below the surface of what is believed to be the home of Adam Baldridge's pirate fortress.
Wow, look at that. I wasn't expecting that, Dan.
Oh, yeah.
We actually see a linear feature.
I can see it in the 2000 and the 7000.
Yeah, that's... I totally wasn't expecting that. I was pessimistic, but there is definitely a linear feature, but it doesn't look like it's continuous. There might be some collapse or something, but there's very strong signal.
It's very consistent with the possibility of a partially collapsed tunnel.
Well,
let me see if I can find the evidence to
definitely
support
could
that.
be.
Any voids or spaces under the soil will create a hyperbola or bump in the screen's readout.
Look at this.
Oh,
look at that color. It definitely shows the hyperbola, consistent with a feature that may be a void or a tunnel.
Yeah.
This may be the exact feature we're looking for on Forbidden Island.
After careful analysis, Ken and Dan are ready to share their findings with Barry.
We found something extremely exciting. We found a linear relationship of low conductivity soils relative to the surrounding soils in the area directly from the upper shaft to the lower shaft.
Indicating a void in the...
Indicating a possible void in a linear shape down between those two shafts.
Ken and Dan believe that their data supports the likelihood of a tunnel system on Forbidden Island.
We were skeptical at first, specifically because the field indications were sporadic. I got indications that there were areas of lower conductivity in a linear fashion, but because we were not seeing them in every scan, I had my reservations. When we processed the data through the software and coupled with the electromagnetic survey, it was very clear that the tunnel existed. It appears that several areas of the tunnel are open. Several areas appear to be collapsed. But I can conclusively say that areas that are open appear to be approximately 5 feet wide, exist somewhere between 9 and 12 feet.
And you can clearly see that area of the purple areas are in a linear fashion down the length of that.
I mean, that's man-made.
It is data that would be uncharacteristic of the rest of the area.
Yeah.
While Barry and the geologists have had some luck on Forbidden Island, the team scanning the harbor have spent several days mowing the lawn, carefully scanning the sea floor in an overlapping grid pattern. So far, the wrecks mentioned in the archival documents and the maps Barry found in his research have eluded them.
I remember though, I was going right along the wharf. You could see those, well, you were along the wharf and we got it on the left bank. Right. So I'm thinking, go back over, go close to the wharf, but we're running off the left bank. All right, I got it. Get a little closer. Go out of tad.
Is that any better? I mean, what's the depth?
You want 27.
27?
All right, I don't like this. I'm going to go to the full size scan because it's not giving me anymore.
You better hurry because it's coming up.
Well, the screens change. There it is right there. What? Right here.
It is?
Up there.
Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go.
There it is right there. Right here.
It is?
Up there.
Underwater recovery experts Jeff Spiegel and Mike Pizio believe they may have found another potential pirate shipwreck in the harbor of Isle Ste. Marie.
Straight out from there.
Yep.
All right.
Got it. Throw the anchor.
Spiegel and Pizio are part of an expedition to prove that 17th century pirates once made this tiny island off the coast of Madagascar their criminal command center. Archaeologist John DeBry will be the first to dive on the potential wreck. "30 feet below the water, a ballast pile. The team hopes they've found one of the two ships said to be deliberately sunk here as part of a battle strategy 300 years ago. Unlike the location of the Fiery Dragon site, which is close to shore, this wreck is in a unique spot at the very mouth of the harbor. In the pirates' day, before a causeway was built, this was the only place deep enough for seagoing ships to enter the harbor. Of the dozen ships believed to be buried off Isle Ste. Marie, legend has it that only 2 ships went down in this part of the harbor, the Mocha frigate and the Great Mohammed. In September of 1698, the Great Mohammed was the pride of the Turkish shipping industry. At 130 feet long and 45 feet wide, she was a floating city, carrying 600 passengers back from a pilgrimage to Mecca.
She was also carrying a fortune in gold, silver, jewels, and other treasure, and was one of the richest vessels ever attacked by pirates. In many instances, European pirates had an easy time capturing vessels in the Indian Ocean, but this was one of the exceptions.
2 pirate ships are waiting for the Great Mohammed as she sails along the eastern coast of Africa. The first, known as the Mocha frigate, is captained by Robert Culliford, a brazen pirate who once stole a ship from Captain Kidd. The other, the Soldado, is helmed by Dirk Shivers, a Dutch privateer infamous for ordering the lips of a prisoner sewn shut when the man wouldn't stop complaining.
By all accounts, an extraordinarily violent battle that lasted a considerable length of time, several hours, and in the course of it, over 20 pirates were killed and several hundred Muslim passengers.
There are stories of torture and brutality, passengers jumping overboard to escape their captors. The pirates seize a king's ransom in gold, worth roughly $350 million in today's dollars. But for the Soldado's Captain Shivers, the bonus prize is a new ship. Shivers transfers his cannons and spoils to the Great Mohammed.
And together, those 2 vessels, the Great Mohammed and the Mocha, returned to St. Marie.
Enraged by the theft of the Great Mohammed and stories of the brutality of the raid, the powerful Indian moguls who lost millions in gold demand that their British trading partners reimburse them for the loss. They claim the British must be in league with the pirates to have let this happen.
The British government finally realized the threat that they posed to not only English shipping, but to shipping worldwide, and they turned the Royal Navy loose on these pirates.
In 1699, in a move to reassure their trading partners, King William sends 4 British men-of-war to Isle St. Marie.
The British were coming in to root out the pirates. Pirates got word of this. So they immediately put 2 vessels, the Great Mohammed and the Mocha frigate. They sunk those vessels across the channel, blocking the channel to keep the British from coming into the inner harbor.
The pirates' plan works. The British return empty-handed. There are no captured pirates to placate the Indian government. It will take diplomacy and hefty bribes to repair relations between the 2 countries. Now, more than 300 years later, it's up to Barry Clifford's team to prove whether the second wreck they've found is one of these 2 famed vessels, sacrificed to save the pirates' Isle St. Marie. Unlike the Fiery Dragon wreck, which is mostly exposed and covered with artifacts, this wreck is buried deep in the silt and mud of the bottom. Located in the deepest part of the harbor, the team must rely on metal detectors and probes to find the most likely spots to dig the test pits. The dive team is looking for any evidence that this ship was sunk in a hurry: cannons, ammunition, or any items that would normally be stripped before sinking. The metal detectors are reacting, but all the team can do is tie off likely objects and raise them. It's impossible to see details in the silt. But Mike Pizzio quickly finds something that may be a crucial piece of evidence for Clifford and his team's pursuit of pirate history. The dense and oddly shaped mass is too heavy to carry to the surface, so the team calls for a lift bag. The lift bag is essentially a sealed bag that is designed to hold various amounts of pumped-in air, Divers will attach the bag to the sunken object and then fill it with air, which in turn causes the bag to float to the surface, effectively lifting the object from the sea floor.
That's pretty cool.
Barry is quick to identify the object. It's exactly the kind of artifact he's been hoping to find here.
It's probably close to 20 cannonballs in that concretion. You can see each of the cannonballs here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Over decades, iron objects corrode and oxidize in seawater. As the molecules break apart, they bind to surrounding sediment made up of rust, shells, marine organisms, and calcium carbonate to form a concrete-like substance. This mix has fused the cannonballs together. After several hundred years, little of the metal may be left. But the concretion has made a cast of the original object, allowing the team to make the identification.
The pirates weren't leaving cannonballs behind on the ship on purpose. This is more evidence that we need to prove our case.
Yeah, there's a lot more where that came from, Mike? Oh, certain. Yeah, there's just metal detector hits all over of stuff that size and larger.
One of the chief weapons of the pirates, of course, were cannon, and they'd employ different types of shot for different purposes. For example, round shot would be fired toward the waterline of an opposing vessel in order to sink it. Chain shot or bar shot would be fired toward the rigging of a vessel they were chasing in order to slow it down. Obviously, if you're a pirate, you don't want to go sinking the vessel you're trying to rob, so most of the time pirates would use anti-personnel shot, such as bags of musket balls.
The team combs the sea floor for more ammo, and once again Jeff Spiegel hits pay dirt. Only this time, his find is not exactly what he thinks it is.
This is a hand grenade. It's not as heavy as a cannonball, and this would be the fuse. Also, it smells like gunpowder. I've seen a lot of these, but also very dangerous to light because it has a wooden fuse, and there's really no guarantee when it's going to go off. So the idea to get rid of it as quick as you could.
These were hollow iron spheres packed with gunpowder in most instances with a wick. You would use that when you were boarding another vessel, either to throw it onto the decks to disorganize the opposition, or if the opposing crew barricaded itself below decks, you'd pry up some of the deck planking and drop in these grenades. Pirates made them of different types too. Not only were they made of gunpowder, but they were filled with a noxious compound and would act as a smoke grenade. They also had incendiary grenades. You know, some of these weapons were really sophisticated for the 18th century.
To Barry, the number of cannonballs and the presence of hand grenades are clues that the ship was scuttled quickly, since pirates wouldn't willingly dump weaponry.
You wouldn't have time to unload the 40 or 50 cannons that were on board, you know, the Great Mohammed, if you were worried about the British coming in and, capturing you.
That, along with the wreck's location in the harbor, should narrow its identity to one of two vessels.
This is the careening spot. This is where they could drive their ships, as you know, right up on the gentle slope and safely work on them. The Mohammed, the Great Mohammed, and the Mocha were sunk across the bottleneck to prevent the British from coming into the harbor, which is here.
Right.
I'm convinced that we've found both of those ships. Which one is which is the question.
See that? It's really nice down there right now. There's no wind, and that's what's our visibility factor is definitely the wind.
Until now, the second dive site has been cloaked in a cloud of silt, and the divers could only guess at what lay beneath them.
It's clearing up.
As Jeff returns to the second wreck, the increased visibility reveals an unexpected discovery.
Hey, this is weird. I think I've got something down here. There's another ship down here. Hey, this is weird.
In their quest to uncover 300-year-old secrets and prove the existence of the ultimate pirate island, divers off the coast of Madagascar's Isle Sainte Marie are zeroing in on something their radar did not reveal.
There's another ship down here.
We originally thought we had one shipwreck, and now we're starting to think that we have two shipwrecks that are side by side, which would be in line with the history of the ships being sunk together to block the channel.
The clue is a second pile of ballast stone, the stones used to keep the ship's balance in the water.
Most of the ballast in the European wrecks are round, river rock, you know, it's all the same. This is different. This has got these big square kind of granite-looking stones. And man, they're heavy.
A close examination of the stones suggests these are not English ships. That deduction, along with the recovery of cannonballs and other weapons the team has pulled up from the site, seem to indicate that the two wrecks may be the Great Mohammed and the Mocha frigate. In 1699, the British sent warships to crack down on the pirates of Isle Sainte Marie, but the pirates turned them back, using a hasty barricade formed by the bodies of two of their prize ships, the Great Mohammed and the Mocha frigate. Accounts of the time claimed the two vessels were sunk side by side at the mouth of the channel.
We don't think that they had a lot of time to get things off of the ship. Maybe they got the diamonds and the gold, but certainly they didn't take out all of the cargoes that were on the ship.
But like the pirates who had to scramble in order to scuttle their ships, the expedition is also short on time. The permits granted to Clifford by the government of Madagascar are set to expire in just a few days. Clifford and his team focus on finding the pieces of evidence that will definitively identify the ships. FBI specialist Mike Pizio is sent in to try to make the case. He is looking for artifacts of value, weapons, ammunition, anything that suggests the ship was sunk in a hurry, along with any objects that can be dated to the timeline of the sinking.
I'm an FBI special agent. As part of my duties as an agent, I was on the FBI's underwater search and evidence response team. We're tasked with recovering evidence underwater, submerged evidence. Much like you see CSI on TV, we're an underwater CSI team. The difference between what we do in the FBI dive team what's being done here is very, very similar. It's grudging through mud and digging and using a metal detector to try to find the objects. It's really not that different.
Topside, we've got 4 viz here. Topside, it sounds like we've got something new in this area. It's big. It's a big black concretion. There are large ballast stones concreted to it. I think I'm able to break some away.
At some point in time, are we going to be able to extract this, to be able to, to measure it in and and take it out, or is it too big?
I don't know. Okay. But there's big rock jammed in, all jammed in around it.
Tight.
Tight.
Yeah, we'll need a pry bar to get them loose.
Diver Jeff Spiegel enters the water for a closer look at what Mike has found. He is an expert at extracting large objects from the ocean floor. Armed with a jetting hose, he hopes to clear away the sediment from the concretion so he can determine the shape of the object.
Visibility is poor.
The powerful stream kicks up a cloud that all but obscures him. He is able to clear away just enough mud and silt to get a clear picture of the object.
I think we have a cannon here. We just uncovered the muzzle end.
Well, it's a good-sized gun.
How good size?
Well, it's got to be 7 feet.
How big?
Six. Well, the back side of it. Well, it's to be fair, there's this concretion right on the back side of it. Some shells and some rock. and then I cleaned out all around the back, and then I cleaned off the whole gun and around the sides, but we'll have to see what it looks like in the morning.
Good job.
Try to ID that wreck.
Yes, sir.
Cannons were very valuable to pirates, especially the big cannon. They wouldn't just leave them there, you know, they would bring them ashore and use them.
If Clifford and his team can raise the cannon, it will be a break in their quest to ID the ship. But before they can even attempt to lift it off the sea floor, they'll have to clear away some 300 years of silt, mud, and rock.
And every time we dive, there's a little more of it revealed than what was previously, so each time we go in, we see a little more than the last dive.
It's a tedious but necessary process, but one that unexpectedly reveals a stunning find.
Topside, I just found a complete bomb down here. I'm coming up.
Right, got it right out of the base of the cannon.
Wow. Good work.
Very nice.
Wow, that's what it's all about right there.
Yeah,
Good job.
I think it's full of rum. I think we'll be drinking rum tonight.
Very cool.
The bottle that Jeff Spiegel found is really an interesting find because it is diagnostic. It was made in England between 1675 and 1700, 1700 being the terminal date. This is really interesting because the Great Mahomet as well as the Mocha frigate were sunk purposely to block the channel in 1699.
The bottle fits the timeline and the story of the sudden sinking. The bottle would have been filled with rum, and no pirate would have scuttled such a valuable object, except in an emergency. The evidence is mounting that these two ships were sunk impulsively as part of a desperate defense plan. The team now hopes to raise and date the cannon as a final confirmation.
Well, we're going to go out with a lift bag and try and get that cannon out of its current position. Lift it up, bring it over here, and hopefully pull it out just to ID it.
The team will place straps on the cannon to secure it. Then they will attach the straps to a lift bag capable of lifting 2,000 pounds.
There's always some danger involved in raising a large cannon or any large object. You have divers that are around the cannon that sometimes have to go under to put some straps, to adjust straps, and it's always a possibility that one of the lift bags may burst or break, or one of the straps, and that could fall on one of the divers and injure him or even kill him.
Topside, the cannon is strapped up and ready for airbag.
Master diver Ray Badeau has positioned the bag over the cannon and struggles to tie it to the lifting straps.
Fill it up. Hey, keep filling the airbag.
Lift back down.
There's a problem. The bag is filled to capacity, but it still doesn't have enough lift.
Yeah, roger that, roger that. It's not moving, huh?
Not yet.
Jeff wrestles with the massive cannon, trying to break loose the concretion crust that's holding it to the sea floor.
I think I should go ahead and continue putting air in it. Just let a little air out and then just let it sit there. We got to come up with plan B. Okay, calm down, we'll do.
It's a frustrating turn of events for the entire team. If they can't raise the cannon, it will be a big blow to their goal to identify what may be one of the greatest finds in pirate history.
She's not coming without a fight. That's for sure.
Lift back down.
It's not moving, huh?
Not yet.
After days of unearthing scores of artifacts, famed pirate wreck hunter Barry Clifford and his team are on the verge of raising a significant clue. One that could cement Clifford's theory that this island off the coast of Madagascar may be the ultimate pirate island. It's a cannon, and it's not rising to the surface without a fight.
Just let a little air out and then just let it sit there. We got to come up with plan B. What about that little red lift bag? That'd probably do it.
Unable to raise the 2,000-pound weapon with just one inflatable lift bag, the team rigs the cannon with another set of straps and a second bag.
We need more air.
It's a precarious procedure, one that could prove dangerous, even deadly. The bags are fast approaching their maximum pressure. If they burst, the cannon would sink like an anchor, potentially pulling the divers down with it. If caught unprepared, it's a good way to lose a limb or worse. Divers Jeff and Ray attached 2 more smaller lift bags to the cannon. These are the last bags in the team's arsenal.
Yeah, she's free from the bottom.
Well, I don't have a
There we go. That's how you raise a cannon. We're getting close down here. The cannon's almost hitting bottom. Slow it down. We're bringing it into the dock. Alright, let's start bringing it in slowly.
It's all hands on deck to try and wrangle the massive cannon. If it slips off the straps or the bags burst, it could hit bottom and crack into pieces.
Okay, good. Hold that, Jeff. Let's bring it in slowly.
25 feet separate the cannon from recovery. The team is inching it closer to shore while attempting to keep the cannon from bottoming out on the seafloor. Unable to withstand the massive amount of pressure, a valve on the main lift bag bursts. The cannon is dropping to the harbor floor.
Make sure nobody's under.
Jeff tries to stop the bag from losing any more air, but it can't carry the weight of the cannon to the top any longer. And the team does not have a backup. The 2,000-pound gun is barely afloat.
Yeah. Unfixable?
Unfixable.
That's our only one, right?
Yeah.
Kinda sucks.
At least we can see it now. We can look at it. We can measure it. You know, it's not going anywhere.
With the main lift bag burst, the 2,000-pound gun is barely afloat. Too far from shore to lift it, the team decides to examine it in the shallows, where the visibility is best. Ray carefully begins to remove some concretions and pottery shards that have adhered to the cannon.
Once we are able to chip away carefully the incrustation on the rear of the cannon and also the muzzle where we could determine the caliber, I can determine if it is an English cannon, a Dutch cannon, a French cannon, or an Asian cannon.
The team sorts through the debris found fused to the cannon. It provides another clue: Ming porcelain, specifically a style that was popular in the mid-17th century. While the porcelain fits the timeline for the dual sinking of the Mocha frigate and the Great Mohammed, archaeologist John DeBry notices another clue while examining the cannon itself.
One thing that I'd noticed was that the trunnions, the two protrusions on either side of the gun that are there for supporting the gun on a carriage, were closer to the lower aspect of the gun. And the lower the trunnions, the older the gun is. And where those trunnions were positioned suggest a second half of the 17th century.
For now, the team will leave the cannon on the harbor floor, where it will rest under the watchful eyes of local authorities until they return. But they've seen enough to draw their conclusions.
As there's nothing else in the channel, we've done 2 different side scan surveys of the channel now. It's my opinion that we have the Mocha and the Great Mohammed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We know that they sent them in a hurry to prevent British from coming into the harbor.
And side by side.
And side by side. And that's exactly where we found them.
There is no struggle here to find pirate history. It's here. The pirate history is everywhere on this island.
What is exciting about this find is that all the artifacts that we have found, located or brought up, were pre-1700, all 17th century, and absolutely diagnostic. There hasn't been any more shipwrecks that could be identified as pirate ships because they just didn't have enough diagnostic artifacts to be able to say that. Now we are on Sainte Marie Island. We found 2 ships that are most likely pirate ships, and possibly more. So this place is absolutely incredible.
We'll be back, and what we've discovered to date is just the tip of the iceberg. These things take a long time, and it's a multi-year project.
Barry and his team have finally brought back proof of the elusive pirates who were lost to legend for 300 years. Reviled and romanticized in fiction, the objects and artifacts they left behind make real the bandits who were once kings of an actual pirate island.
And they seem to have captured everyone's imagination. I mean, they were outlaws, cutthroats, villains. They definitely have captured the romanticism of the period. And, why? Maybe it was because they stepped to the other side and dared to be free.